The smell of solder and hot electronics filled my garage workshop as I made the final adjustments to my latest prototype. 20 years of work was about to pay off, though my family didn't know it yet. They never bothered to understand what I was really building out here. "Still playing with your toys, Marcus?" I didn't look up from my work. My brother Peter's voice carried that familiar tone of amused condescension. He stood in the doorway of my garage, probably fresh from another board meeting at Hamilton Tech, our family's company. "What do you want, Peter? Mom and Dad's anniversary dinner? The one you're already an hour late for?" He stepped inside, wrinkling his nose at the clutter of circuit boards and testing equipment. "Though I can see you're busy with your hobby." I carefully set down my soldering iron. The prototype could wait a few hours. "I'll change and be right there." "Don't bother with a suit," Peter smirked. "We all know you can't afford one on a school teacher's salary." Actually, my teaching position at the local community college was just a cover, a way to access their advanced electronics lab for my research. But Peter didn't need to know that. Let him think I was just the family failure, the dreamer who'd walked away from a cushy corporate job to pursue crazy inventions. The Hamilton mansion was lit up like a Christmas tree when I arrived. Luxury cars filled the circular driveway. The board members and executives who'd helped build Hamilton Tech into one of the country's largest electronics manufacturers, all here to celebrate my parents' 40th wedding anniversary. "Marcus," my mother's voice carried across the marble foyer. "You couldn't even dress properly for this." I looked down at my clean but simple clothes. "Sorry, Mom, lost track of time." "In that garage again," she sighed. "Honestly, when are you going to grow up and rejoin the real world?" The real world. Like the corporate bubble they lived in, where success was measured only in stock prices and market share. "Marcus," my father's greeting was cool as I entered the main hall. "Your sister was just telling us about Hamilton Tech's latest acquisition. Quite impressive." "Ah yes, my perfect sister Diana. Harvard MBA, Chief Strategy Officer at Hamilton Tech, and Peter's partner in pushing me out of the company 10 years ago. Expanding into quantum computing," Diana announced proudly. "The future of the industry." Though I'm sure Marcus is still busy with his little gadgets. The other executives chuckled. They'd all heard about the crazy Hamilton son who'd thrown away his inheritance to tinker in his garage. If they only knew what I'd actually been developing all these years. "How is the teaching going?" my father asked, though his attention was already drifting to more important guests. "Fine, my students." "Dad." Diana cut me off. "The chairman of the board wants to discuss the merger." And just like that, I was forgotten again. Story of my life in this family. I found a quiet corner and watched them all congratulate themselves on their business genius. Hamilton Tech had grown enormously under my father's leadership, but lately things had stagnated. Their technology was falling behind competitors. The quantum computing acquisition was a desperate attempt to stay relevant. My phone buzzed. A text from my research partner, Dr. Sarah Chen. "Final tests complete. Patent filing ready. Should I submit?" I smiled, thinking of the prototype sitting in my garage. 20 years of work, leading to a breakthrough that would revolutionize quantum computing. The very field Hamilton Tech was struggling to enter. "Not yet," I texted back. "Wait until tomorrow." Family event tonight. Speaking of the quantum division, Peter's voice carried across the room. "Our engineers are making excellent progress." I had to suppress a laugh. Their excellent progress was years behind what I'd already achieved. But they'd never bothered to look at my research, never taken my ideas seriously. "Marcus," a soft voice interrupted my thoughts. Angela, my old friend from the Hamilton Tech engineering department, one of the few who'd supported my decision to leave. "Is it really ready?" She was the only person outside my research team who knew what I'd been developing. "Final testing completed today," I said quietly. "Patent filing tomorrow." Her eyes widened. "They have no idea, do they? What's about to hit them?" 20 years of thinking I was wasting my time in that garage. 20 years of mockery and dismissal. I sipped my champagne. Let them enjoy tonight. Tomorrow everything changes. "Marcus," Peter's voice again. "Stop hiding and join the family photo. Try to look successful for once." I stood with them, smiling for the camera. The disappointing son, the crazy inventor, the family embarrassment. Let them think that for one more night. Tomorrow, when my quantum processing patent was published, They'd learn exactly what I'd been building in that garage, and why their desperate corporate acquisition was already obsolete. Speech, someone called out. My father stood, raising his glass. To family, he declared. To success. To Hamilton Tech's continued dominance in the industry. And to my children, Peter and Diana, who represent the future of our company. I noticed he didn't mention me. As usual, my phone buzzed again. Sarah, Wall Street Journal wants to interview you tomorrow. They've heard rumors about the breakthrough. Perfect timing. Later that night, as the party wound down, Diana cornered me by the coat check. You should sell the garage, she said. Use the money to buy some decent clothes, maybe start a real career. I thought of the prototype hidden there, of the patents that would be filed in just a few hours. Actually, I smiled. I think I'll keep it. Never know when you might need a good workspace. For what? More failed inventions? She shook her head. Face it, Marcus, you're never going to be anything more than the family disappointment. I collected my coat, thinking of tomorrow's headlines, of the chaos that would erupt when Hamilton Tech realized their billion-dollar quantum computing acquisition was worthless compared to my technology. We'll see about that, sister. We'll see. The next morning, I sat in my garage watching the sun rise. In 1 hour, the patent office would open. In 2 hours, the Wall Street Journal article would drop. In 3 hours, Hamilton Tech's stock would start trading. My phone buzzed. A message from Angela. Board meeting scheduled for 9 a.m. They have no idea what's coming. I looked at my prototype, the culmination of 20 years' work. The device that would either save Hamilton Tech or destroy it, depending on how my family chose to handle today's revelations. Time to show them what the family disappointment can really do, I texted back. The garage didn't look like much, just a cluttered workspace full of electronics and testing equipment. But by sunset, everyone would know this was where a revolution in quantum computing had been quietly developed. While they were busy mocking my toys and failed inventions, I created something that would change the industry forever. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's proving yourself right in a way they can't possibly ignore. My phone buzzed one final time. Sarah again. Patent office opens in 5 minutes. Ready to press send. I thought of all the family dinners I'd endured. All the mockery about wasting my time. All the suggestions to get a real job and grow up. Send it, I replied. It's time. By 8:45 a.m., my simple garage had become the center of a media storm. Reporters clustered outside, held back by private security I'd hired weeks ago. Inside, I sat calmly at my workbench, watching Hamilton Tech's stock price on my laptop while Sarah handled the press calls. Wall Street Journal article just dropped, she announced. Your family's PR team is already in damage control mode. I smiled, scanning the headline. Revolutionary quantum computing breakthrough, inside the garage that could change everything. The article was devastating in its simplicity. While Hamilton Tech had spent billions acquiring outdated quantum computing technology, their crazy inventor's son had quietly developed something far more advanced. My patent application, now public, proved that their entire acquisition strategy was obsolete before it began. Your brother's calling. Again. Sarah held up my phone, showing Peter's name flashing for the 10th time. Let it rain. He can wait until the board meeting. Right on cue, Angela texted, emergency board meeting starting. Your father looks like he's about to explode. Peter and Diana are trying to spin this as a hoax. I checked the stock price again. Hamilton Tech shares were already dropping as investors digested the news. The quantum computing division they'd spent billions acquiring was worthless compared to my technology. Time to go, I told Sarah, standing up. Ready to crash a board meeting. The Hamilton Tech headquarters hadn't changed much in 10 years. Same sleek glass tower, same expensive art in the lobby, same security guards who used to know me as the boss's son. Mr. Hamilton, the head of security, nodded, looking uncomfortable. The boardroom is. I know where it is, Frank, and I believe they're expecting me. We could hear the shouting before we reached the top floor. Peter's voice carried through the closed boardroom doors. This has to be a trick. Marcus couldn't possibly. I pushed open the doors, Sarah right behind me. The room fell silent. Hello, family, I said quietly. I believe you have some questions about my patent application. You. Diana shot to her feet. How dare you announce this without warning? Do you have any idea what you've done to our stock price? Your stock price? I raised an eyebrow. I wasn't aware I owed Hamilton Tech any consideration. After all, I'm just the family disappointment, right? The crazy inventor playing with toys in his garage. Marcus. My father's voice was tight with controlled fury. This is not the time for your games. Whatever you think you've invented is exactly what the patent application and testing data prove it is. Sarah cut in, dropping a thick folder on the boardroom table. Full documentation, verified by 3 independent labs. Your son has created what your billion-dollar acquisition couldn't, true quantum processing at room temperature. The board members murmured, passing the technical specifications around the table. They might not understand the science, but they understood what it meant for their company. Impossible, Peter insisted. He's a community college teacher, a failed engineer who couldn't cut it in the real world. I had to laugh. Failed? Peter. I left because I saw where the real breakthroughs would come from. Not from corporate bureaucracy and safe investments, but from real innovation, the kind you were too afraid to pursue. If this technology is real, one board member spoke up, why come forward now? Why not earlier? Because now it's perfect, I said simply. Tested, proven, and patented. And perfectly timed to show you exactly what you've been missing while you were busy mocking my little hobby. What do you want? My father finally asked. Money? A position in the company? No, I sat down at the table, enjoying the way they all tense. I want you to understand exactly what your arrogance has cost you. Your quantum computing division? Worthless. Those billions you spent? Wasted. And the only technology that could save you belongs to the son you dismissed as a failure. Diana's face had gone pale as she read through the technical specifications. She'd always been the smartest of us. She understood what this meant. The Chinese and European offers, she whispered. They're real, aren't they? I nodded. 5 major tech companies have already made offers for licensing rights, but I thought it was only fair to let family know first. You can't sell to our competitors, Peter protested. We're your family. Family? I stood up slowly. Was it family when you pushed me out of the company? When you mocked every idea I brought to the board? When you told everyone I was crazy for believing in something you couldn't understand? The room fell silent again. Even my father seemed to have run out of words. The good news, I continued, is that I'm willing to negotiate. Hamilton Tech can have first rights to the technology for a price. Name it, the chairman of the board said quickly, before my family could object. First, Peter and Diana resign. Their positions go to qualified engineers, not corporate politicians. Now wait a minute, Peter started, but Diana grabbed his arm. Done, she said quietly. What else? My own division, with complete autonomy, no interference from the family or the board, and 51% of the quantum computing subsidiary. That's outrageous, my father exploded. You can't demand. I can demand whatever I want. I cut him off. Because right now, your stock is in free fall. In an hour, the market opens in Europe. In 3 hours, Asia. By the end of the day, Hamilton Tech could lose half its value, unless you announce a deal with me. I looked around the table, meeting each board member's eyes. Or I can take one of those other offers. Your choice. The vote took less than 10 minutes. Even my father had to agree, faced with the complete collapse of his company's value. As the lawyers worked out details, I stepped into my father's office, soon to be my office. He stood by the window, looking older than I'd ever seen him. 20 years, he said quietly. 20 years we thought you were wasting your life. No, I corrected him. 20 years you chose not to see what I was really doing. There's a difference. And now you want us all. I thought about the prototype in my garage, about the years of solitary work while they mocked my choices, about the satisfaction of proving them all wrong. I don't want to own you, I said finally. I want to make Hamilton Tech what it should have been all along. A real technology company, not just a family empire. Hours later, back in my garage, I read through the final press releases. Hamilton Tech stock had stabilized on news of the deal. Peter and Diana's resignations were announced as pursuing other opportunities. My new position as head of quantum research was official. Was it worth the wait? Sarah asked, watching me pack up my workbench. Soon this would all be moved to my new labs at Hamilton Tech. I picked up an old circuit board, my first attempt at quantum processing, built right here in this waste of space garage. They spent 20 years telling me I was a failure, I said, that I'd never amount to anything, that my dreams were worthless. And now? I smiled, thinking of their faces in that boardroom. Now they know that sometimes the crazy inventor in the garage is the only one who sees the future clearly. My phone buzzed. A message from Angela. Peter's clearing out his office. Diana's already gone. Your name's being added to the executive parking roster. Tell them to leave everything, I texted back. Starting tomorrow, Hamilton Tech does things differently. I looked around my garage one last time. The place where I proved everyone wrong. Where I built something they couldn't dismiss or ignore. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's success they have to acknowledge, have to depend on, have to respect. They called me the family disappointment. Now they worked for me. The end.
Snow was falling softly outside my parents' house as I pulled into the driveway, my old Honda Civic looking out of place among the luxury vehicles already parked there. My sister Victoria's Mercedes gleamed under the Christmas lights, a reminder of how different our paths had become, or so she thought. I grabbed my overnight bag from the trunk, bracing myself for the annual Christmas gathering. At 32, I was still treated like the family failure, the cautionary tale of what happens when you don't follow the prescribed path to success. Victoria opened the door before I could knock, her designer sweater and perfectly styled hair making my simple outfit feel even more inadequate. "Oh, you actually came," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Merry Christmas to you too, Vic," I replied, stepping into the warmth of our childhood home. The living room was already full of relatives, all dressed in their holiday best. Mom was arranging appetizers on silver platters while Dad chatted with Uncle James about golf club memberships. The massive Christmas tree sparkled with ornaments that probably cost more than my monthly rent, or what they thought was my rent. "Catherine," Mom called out, barely glancing my way. "You're late, and couldn't you have dressed up a little?" I looked down at my clothes. A simple black sweater and pants that actually cost more than Victoria's entire outfit, though the labels were carefully hidden. Traffic was bad, I said, ignoring the comment about my appearance. Victoria smirked, adjusting her diamond bracelet. "Well, we have a bit of a situation with the sleeping arrangements. The guest rooms are all taken." I could see where this was going. Every year, they found some way to remind me of my supposed place in the family hierarchy. "Your cousin Amanda needs the blue room. She's pregnant, you know," Mom added, as if I couldn't possibly understand the importance of a pregnant woman's comfort. "And Victoria's boss, Mr. Harrison, and his wife are in the green room." My lips twitched slightly at the mention of Harrison. If they only knew. "So where am I sleeping?" I asked, though I already knew the answer wouldn't be pleasant. Victoria's smile turned predatory. "We cleaned out a space in the garage. There's a cot and some old blankets. That should be good enough for you." The room fell silent, relatives pretending not to listen while catching every word. This was their entertainment, watching Victoria put me in my place. The garage. I kept my voice neutral. "In December." "Oh, don't be dramatic," Mom interjected. "There's a space heater out there. And it's not like you're not used to modest accommodations." I thought about my penthouse apartment in the city, the vacation home in the Hamptons, the private island I'd bought last summer, all carefully hidden under layers of shell companies and discrete ownership structures. "The garage is fine," I said quietly, picking up my bag. "I'm sure it's better than what most of my students have." Victoria's smile widened. She loved it when I mentioned my job teaching at the local community college. More proof in her mind of my failure to launch. "That's the spirit," she said, leading me to the garage door. "At least you know your place." The garage was cold, despite the small heater humming in the corner. They'd set up an old military cot between Dad's golf clubs and boxes of Christmas decorations. A thin blanket lay folded at one end, probably pulled from the back of some closet. "Dinner's at 7, Victoria said, her voice echoing in the concrete space. "Try not to track any dirt into the house when you come in." As the door closed behind her, I set my bag down and pulled out my phone. 3 urgent emails from the board needed attention before tomorrow's meeting. The same meeting where Victoria's boss would be presenting his quarterly reports, unaware that his year-end bonus depended entirely on my approval. I sat on the cot, smiling slightly as I typed out my responses. Victoria had no idea that her perfect boss, Mr. Harrison, had spent the last month desperately trying to arrange a meeting with the elusive CEO of Summit Enterprises, the parent company that had quietly acquired their firm last year. My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant. "Mr. Harrison asked again about meeting you before tomorrow's board meeting. Should I tell him you're unavailable?" "No," I typed back. "Let him think I'm still in London. It'll make dinner more interesting." I changed into fresh clothes, carefully hiding my Chanel blouse under a plain sweater. The garage was freezing, but I'd endured worse in my early days of building my empire. While Victoria had been climbing the corporate ladder, bragging about each small promotion, I'd been quietly acquiring companies, restructuring industries, and building something far bigger than anyone in my family could imagine. At precisely 7, I walked into the dining room, taking my assigned seat at the far end of the table, as far from the important guests as possible. Victoria sat near the head of the table, next to Mr. Harrison and his wife, laughing at something he'd said. "Catherine," Dad called out, "Victoria was just telling us about her latest promotion. Junior Vice President of Operations. Isn't that wonderful?" I nodded, accepting the plate of turkey being passed my way. "Congratulations, Vic. Summit Enterprises must be impressed with your work." Mr. Harrison smiled broadly. "She's one of our rising stars. The merger with Summit last year has opened up so many opportunities for talented people like Victoria." The merger, Mom sighed happily. "We were so worried when we heard Summit had bought the company, but it's turned out wonderfully. Though no one seems to know much about Summit's CEO. Very mysterious, isn't it?" Victoria leaned forward, eager to share her insider knowledge. "Apparently, she's this reclusive billionaire who never appears in public. Some say she lives in London, others think she's in Tokyo. No one at our level has ever met her." I took a sip of wine to hide my smile. If they only knew that the mysterious CEO they were gossiping about was sitting at the end of their table, banished to sleep in their garage. "I heard she's brilliant," Mr. Harrison added. "Transformed at least 12 major companies in the last 5 years. Built Summit from nothing into a global powerhouse." "Well," Victoria said dismissively, "she can't be that brilliant if she's hiding from everyone. Probably some trust fund baby who got lucky." Just then, Mr. Harrison's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face turning slightly pale. "Excuse me, I need to take this." He stepped into the hallway, but his voice carried clearly into the dining room. Yes, I have those reports ready for tomorrow's board meeting." "No, I haven't been able to reach Mrs. CEO yet." "Yes, I understand how important. She's still in London." Mr. Harrison returned to the table looking flustered, his earlier confidence diminished. Victoria, ever eager to impress, immediately launched into another story about her recent achievements. "I just restructured our entire operations department," she boasted, cutting her turkey into precise pieces. "Saved the company millions." I checked my phone under the table, pulling up the actual report from that project. Victoria had indeed made changes. changes that had cost the company nearly $3 million in inefficiencies. I'd been watching the numbers tank for weeks, waiting for the right moment to address it. "More wine, Catherine?" Mom offered, probably hoping to keep me quiet during Victoria's moment of glory. "Though maybe you should stick to water, given your financial situation." Victoria snickered. Yes, community college teachers should really watch their spending. Mr. Harrison's phone buzzed again. This time when he checked it, his face went completely white. I need to make another call. Urgent business." As he hurried from the room, I could hear him practically begging into his phone. "Please, just 5 minutes with Mrs. CDO. The board meeting tomorrow." I'd instructed my assistant to start sending him a series of increasingly urgent messages about tomorrow's meeting. A little cruel, perhaps, but after years of watching Victoria lord her position over me, I felt entitled to some theatrical justice. Speaking of business, Uncle James chimed in. "Did you all hear about Summit's latest acquisition? They just bought out Richardson Global for $12 billion. Victoria sat up straighter. "Really? That's one of our biggest competitors." "A hostile takeover," Aunt Margaret added. "Richardson never saw it coming. This mysterious CEO, she's absolutely ruthless." I thought about the Richardson deal, remembering the late nights spent strategizing, the careful maneuvering of assets. Ruthless wasn't the word I'd use. Strategic, perhaps. Determined, definitely. Mr. Harrison returned again, looking like he might faint. "Mrs. CDO is calling an emergency pre-board meeting tomorrow at 7 a.m. All department heads must attend." Victoria's fork clattered against her plate. "What? But tomorrow's Christmas." "She doesn't care," Mr. Harrison replied weakly. "She's reviewing all recent operational changes." "Victoria, bring your restructuring reports." Now seemed like the perfect moment. I cleared my throat softly. "Mr. Harrison." He looked up, seemingly surprised to hear my voice from the far end of the table. "Yes." "The meeting's actually at 8 a.m., not 7. And Victoria won't need her reports. I've already reviewed them." The room went silent. Victoria let out a nervous laugh. "What are you talking about? You don't even work for Summit." I stood up slowly, smoothing my simple sweater. "Actually, I do. In fact, I am Summit." I turned to Mr. Harrison. "Those reports you've been trying to get to me? I received them last week. We should discuss the Q4 projections. They're off by about 30 million. Mr. Harrison's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. You're Catherine Wilson, CEO of Summit Enterprises." "Yes." I smiled, enjoying the way Victoria's face had drained of all color, though most people just call me Mrs. CEO. Mom's wine glass slipped from her fingers, spilling red across the white tablecloth. No one moved to clean it up. "This is a joke," Victoria whispered. "It has to be." I pulled out my phone, projecting my company ID onto the dining room wall. There it was in high definition. My photo, my title, my company. No joke, Vic. "While you were climbing the corporate ladder, I built the building." But you're a teacher," Mom stammered. "I teach 1 class per semester at the community college," I corrected her. "Because I believe in education and giving back. The rest of my time is spent running one of the largest private equity firms in the world." Victoria pushed back from the table, her chair scraping against the floor. "You can't be. You live in a tiny apartment. You drive a Honda." "I own the building where my tiny apartment is located." "As for the Honda," I shrugged, "it's good for the environment. Unlike your Mercedes, which, by the way, you probably shouldn't have charged to the company account." Mr. Harrison had sunk into his chair, no doubt remembering every condescending comment he'd made in meetings about the mysterious CEO. "The garage," he muttered. "We made you sleep in the garage." "Yes," I said quietly. "You did. All of you were so busy judging me by appearances that you never bothered to look deeper. Victoria, remember last month when you denied Sarah in accounting time off for her son's surgery?" Victoria nodded mutely. "I approved her medical leave personally and arranged for the best specialist in the country. Because that's what real leaders do. They take care of their people." Dad finally found his voice. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Would it have mattered?" I asked, meeting his eyes. "Would you have treated me any differently if I hadn't been successful on your terms? This family measures worth by brand names and bank accounts. I wanted to build something meaningful." I turned to Mr. Harrison. "The board meeting tomorrow will proceed as scheduled. We'll be discussing the operational restructuring that cost us $3 million, among other things." My eyes shifted to Victoria. "I suggest everyone comes prepared." "You're going to fire me," Victoria whispered. "No," I replied, gathering my belongings. "I'm going to do what I should have done years ago, hold you accountable. Success isn't about titles or corner offices. It's about integrity, innovation, and actual results." I headed toward the garage to collect my bag. Behind me, I could hear the chaos erupting. Mom's sobs, Victoria's protests, Mr. Harrison's frantic phone calls. "One more thing," I said, pausing at the door. "I won't be sleeping in the garage tonight. I have a suite at the Four Seasons, which I own, by the way. Merry Christmas." As I drove away in my environmentally friendly Honda, my phone buzzed with messages from family members. Apologies, explanations, attempts to rewrite history. I ignored them all. The next morning, I sat at the head of the boardroom table in Summit's headquarters, watching as Victoria and Mr. Harrison filed in with the other executives. Gone was my sister's smug superiority, replaced by something that looked remarkably like respect. "Before we begin," I announced, "I want to talk about company culture. About how we treat people, regardless of their title or apparent status. Because success isn't just about profits, it's about character." Victoria wouldn't meet my eyes, but I saw her taking notes for the first time in her career. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about showing people that their judgment of you never mattered in the first place. While they were busy looking down on me, I was building an empire. And as for next Christmas, I think I'll host it at my place, all 15,000 square feet of it. Let them sleep in the garage.
I still remember that rainy Tuesday morning when my world fell apart. After 8 years of marriage, I came home from my night shift at the local diner to find the locks changed and my belongings in garbage bags on the front porch. My hands trembled as I called my husband David, only to hear his cold voice. "It's over, Sarah. I've moved on. Don't try to come back." I stood there, rain soaking through my waitress uniform, staring at the house we bought together. Well, the house I bought, technically, my inheritance from my beloved grandfather, had paid for the down payment, but David's name was on all the paperwork. I trusted him completely when he said it was easier that way with his credit score. What a fool I'd been. My phone buzzed again. A text notification from our joint bank account. Balance, $0. 8 years of savings gone. My separate account, also emptied. He'd had access to everything because I'd trusted him, because I believed in our marriage. I didn't know then that this was just the beginning. With nowhere else to go, I loaded what I could into my old Honda Civic, the only thing still in my name, and drove to my mother-in-law Patricia's house. Maybe there had been some mistake. Maybe she could help me understand what was happening. I should have known better. Patricia opened her door wearing her signature pearl necklace and disapproving frown. Behind her, I could see David's sister Amanda smirking. Well, Patricia said, looking down her nose at my wet, bedraggled appearance. I suppose you're here to beg for money now that David's finally seen sense. Patricia, please, My voice cracked. I don't understand what's happening. Everything's gone. The house, our savings. Oh, honey, she laughed, but there was no warmth in it. Did you really think someone like David would stay with a waitress forever? He's finally moving up in the world, and he needs someone more suitable. She adjusted her designer watch. Though I must say, you lasted longer than I expected. Most gold diggers would have shown their true colors years ago. Gold digger? I whispered, stunned. I paid for our house. I supported him through his MBA. With your grandfather's money, Amanda chimed in. Which you've been lording over David for years. Well, now he's paid you back. Guess you'll have to find another rich old man to mooch off of. I stood there, rain mixing with my tears, as 8 years of memories rewrote themselves in my mind. All those family dinners where they'd subtly mocked my job. The way they'd dismissed my contribution to David's success. How they'd never accepted me, the poor girl from the wrong side of town who dared to marry into their precious family. Where is he? I asked, my voice stronger now. Where's David? On his honeymoon, Patricia said with a cruel smile. With Jessica. You remember her? His new executive assistant. They've been seeing each other for months. She comes from a good family, you know. She'll be much better at supporting David's career than you ever were. The world spun around me. Jessica. The woman he'd hired 6 months ago, who he'd insisted on working late with so often, who'd smiled sweetly at me at the company Christmas party while apparently sleeping with my husband. You knew. I realized, looking between Patricia and Amanda. You all knew he was cheating. Of course we knew. Amanda rolled her eyes. We helped him plan everything. Jessica's father is on the board of David's company. This marriage will do wonders for his career. Unlike you, who's been holding him back with your embarrassing little waitress job. Now, Patricia said, reaching for her door. I suggest you leave before I call the police. And don't bother trying to fight this in court. Our family lawyer has everything handled. You signed a prenup, remember? You'll get nothing. The door slammed in my face, leaving me alone in the rain once again. That night, I slept in my car in a Walmart parking lot, too shocked and broken to even cry. The next day, I tried to check into a cheap motel, only to find my credit cards canceled. My phone was next. Apparently, it had been on David's plan. Within 48 hours, I had nothing but my car, the clothes in my garbage bags, and $237 in cash. I managed to find a bed at the local women's shelter. The irony wasn't lost on me. I volunteered here for years, never imagining I'd end up staying here myself. The shelter director, Grace, remembered me from my volunteer days and gave me a private room usually reserved for emergency cases. You're in shock, Sarah, she said gently, bringing me a cup of tea. But you're stronger than you know, and when you're ready, we'll help you fight back. I didn't believe her then. How could I fight back? David had taken everything, planned it all perfectly. He had his family's money, their lawyers, their connections. I was just a waitress with a worthless degree in social work, trying to make ends meet while supporting my husband's dreams. But Grace was right about one thing. I was in shock, so much so that I almost missed the most important detail of all, a detail that would change everything. It happened 3 days into my stay at the shelter. I was helping in the shelter's kitchen. I couldn't afford to pay for my stay, but I could at least cook when I heard excited whispers from the front office. The CEO of Montgomery Industries is here. What's Alexander Montgomery doing at our shelter? I heard he's doing a series of surprise visits to local charities. I froze, nearly dropping the pot I was holding. Montgomery Industries, David's company, the place he'd worked his way up to middle management, always complaining that he deserved more recognition, faster promotions. I'd never met anyone from his work. He'd always said I wouldn't fit in at corporate events. But I knew about Alexander Montgomery. Everyone in town did. The brilliant young CEO who'd taken over his father's company 5 years ago and transformed it into a tech giant. The businessman who put our small city on the map. The man who, if the gossip was true, had no patience for dishonesty or corruption in his company. Before I could decide whether to hide in the kitchen, Grace came rushing in. Sarah, Mr. Montgomery is asking to speak with all our residents. He's making a large donation and wants to hear their stories firsthand. Would you be comfortable joining the group? I looked down at my shelter-provided clothes, touched my unwashed hair. I don't know, Grace. I'm not really presentable. Nonsense, she said firmly. You're one of us now, and your story deserves to be heard. So that's how I found myself sitting in a circle with 15 other shelter residents, facing Alexander Montgomery himself. He wasn't what I expected. Younger than I'd imagined, maybe in his mid-30s, wearing a simple button-down shirt and slacks. No fancy suit, no arrogant attitude. He listened intently to each woman's story, asking thoughtful questions, taking notes. Then it was my turn. "I'm Sarah," I said quietly. "I'm here because my husband emptied our accounts and changed the locks while I was at work. He works for your company, actually." Alexander Montgomery's head snapped up, his pen freezing mid-note. "What did you say?" I couldn't stop now. The whole story poured out. The 8 years of marriage, supporting David through his MBA, buying our house with my inheritance, discovering his affair with his executive assistant, his family's cruel dismissal. "He's David Chen." I finished, my voice barely a whisper. "In middle management, he just married Jessica Williams. Her father is on your board." The room was dead silent. Alexander Montgomery's face had gone completely still, his eyes intense. "David Chen," he repeated slowly. "The one who's been pushing for a senior director position, who's been claiming his wife is fully supportive of his career moves." I laughed bitterly. Supportive? I didn't even know he was divorcing me until I found my belongings in garbage bags. "Grace," Alexander said suddenly, standing up. "May I use your office for a moment? Mrs. Chen and I need to have a private conversation." "It's Ms. Miller now," I corrected quietly. "I'm going back to my maiden name." He nodded, a strange expression crossing his face. "Ms. Miller, then. Please, come with me." As I followed him to Grace's office, I had no idea that this conversation would change everything. That within 24 hours, David's perfectly planned new life would begin to crumble. And it would all start with 5 simple words from Alexander Montgomery. "I've been looking for you." I followed Alexander Montgomery into Grace's small office, my heart pounding. He closed the door and turned to face me, his expression intense. "5 years ago," he said, "did you write a business proposal for a corporate-sponsored chain of community resource centers?" My mouth fell open. "How did you?" "It crossed my desk when I first became CEO," he continued. "Brilliant concept. Combining job training, childcare, and social services in economically disadvantaged areas. The financial projections were sound. The community impact analysis thorough. But when I tried to contact the author, Sarah Miller, she vanished. The email bounced back, the phone number was disconnected. I sank into a chair, memories flooding back. That was right after I married David. He said the proposal was too amateur, that it would embarrass him at work. He made me take it down from all the submission portals. Said I should focus on supporting his career instead. Alexander's jaw tightened. "Do you know what happened to that proposal, Ms. Miller?" "Nothing. Because your husband buried it. He accessed the company's submission system using his credentials and withdrew it without your knowledge. We found the digital trail during a system audit last year. We couldn't locate you." "He? What?" My voice shook. "But why?" "Because David Chen has been taking credit for other people's work for years. We've suspected, but couldn't prove it. He's very careful. Very manipulative." Alexander sat on the edge of Grace's desk. The proposal's withdrawal caught our attention because it was exceptional. I've been looking for its author ever since. Tears filled my eyes. All those nights I'd worked on that proposal, dreaming of making a difference. All while David was apparently sabotaging me. "There's more," Alexander said gently. 2 months ago, David presented a modified version of your proposal to the board. Claimed it was his original work, part of his bid for the senior director position. Jessica's father has been championing him for the role. A bitter laugh escaped me. So that's why he chose now to leave. He finally found a way to use my work for his advancement. "Ms. Miller, Sarah." Alexander leaned forward. "I'd like to offer you a job as director of our new community impact division. Your original proposal will be the foundation, but you'll have full resources to expand it. Starting salary is $250,000, plus benefits and stock options." I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. "But I'm just a waitress." "No," he said firmly. "You're a brilliant strategist who's been systematically undermined by an abusive husband. That ends today." He pulled out his phone. "With your permission, I'd like to call our legal team." David Chen committed corporate fraud by stealing and misrepresenting your work. That's grounds for immediate termination. My head spun. But his new wife, her father. Board member or not, fraud is fraud. And something tells me Mr. Williams won't be so supportive once he learns the truth about his new son-in-law. Everything moved quickly after that. Alexander's legal team arrived within the hour. They took my statement, gathered evidence. By morning, the truth about David's fraud was exposed. He was fired publicly, his corporate accounts frozen. Jessica's father, horrified by the scandal, immediately annulled their marriage. I wasn't there when it happened, but Amanda later told me in a desperate attempt to reconcile once she realized I was now a company director, that David and Jessica returned early from their honeymoon to find their keycards deactivated and security waiting. How dare you? David had apparently shouted at Alexander in the lobby. Do you know who my new father-in-law is? Was, Alexander corrected calmly. The marriage has been annulled, and Mr. Williams sends his regards, along with a recommendation that you find employment far, far away from our industry. That's when David saw me standing beside Alexander in a designer suit, a gift from the company's stylist. His face went white. Sarah? What are you doing here? Taking back what's mine, I said calmly. The proposal you stole, it's being implemented. The career you tried to destroy, it's flourishing. The woman you discarded, she's your new boss's right hand. Patricia and Amanda tried damage control, of course. Suddenly they were calling constantly, leaving tearful voicemails about family loyalty. But I had a new family now, the incredible team at Montgomery Industries, who welcomed my ideas and valued my contributions. The women's shelter where I'd stay became the pilot location for our first community resource center. Grace joined as program director. Within a year, we'd opened 10 more centers across the state. David, last I heard, he was working as a junior analyst in a small firm 3 states away. Jessica married a wealthy developer, and Patricia loves to complain about how her new daughter-in-law married down. As for me, well, that's another story. One that started with late nights working on center proposals with Alexander, strategy sessions that turned into dinner discussions, meetings that lingered long after the agenda was complete. I'm not him, Alexander said one evening as we watched the sunset from his office. I'll never try to dim your light. I know, I replied, because I did know. I learned the difference between someone who wants to possess you and someone who wants to see you soar. 2 years after that rainy day when my world fell apart, I stood in the grand ballroom of the Montgomery Industries headquarters. Hundreds of employees and community members gathered to celebrate the opening of our 15th resource center. And now, the MC announced, please welcome our Community Impact Director and newest board member, Mrs. Sarah Montgomery. As I took the podium, my wedding ring catching the light, nothing flashy. Alexander knows I prefer elegant simplicity. I saw my old mother-in-law in the crowd. Patricia had wrangled an invitation through a business contact, no doubt hoping to reconcile now that I'd married up. But I wasn't the same woman she dismissed in the rain. Meeting her eyes, I smiled and began my speech. 5 years ago, I wrote a proposal about the power of community support, about how everyone deserves a chance to rebuild, to grow, to shine. Today, we're not just opening another center. We're making that vision reality. I paused, my hand resting on my slightly rounded belly, our first child still our secret for a few more weeks. Sometimes, life's greatest betrayals lead us exactly where we're meant to be. Sometimes, losing everything means making room for everything you've ever dreamed of. And sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living your truth so boldly that those who tried to break you become nothing but a footnote in your success story. Alexander squeezed my hand as the room erupted in applause. And in that moment, I sent a silent thank you to David. His cruelty had freed me. His betrayal had led me here. I'd lost a husband who dimmed my light, but I found a partner who helped me shine. I'd lost a fake family who valued status, but I built a real one based on love and respect. Most importantly, I found myself, the woman who'd always been there, waiting to emerge. Strong, capable, unstoppable. That night, as Alexander and I drove home to our modest house, we could afford bigger, but I love this one's cozy garden, he asked. Any regrets? I touched my growing belly, thought of our expanding centers, our passionate team, our future together. Just one, I smiled. I should have checked the company submission portal years ago." He laughed, the sound warm in the quiet car. Everything happened exactly when it was supposed to. And you know what? He was right. Sometimes life's greatest blessings come disguised as its cruelest moments. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find what you never knew you were looking for. And sometimes a rainy Tuesday morning when your world falls apart becomes the first chapter of your greatest adventure.